What was that?
So I remember for graduation, not Harvard. It's like 12 people around him trying to get into the parking lot, like helping him maneuver like into the entrance.
Okay, so today we're going to start on Daf Tzaddik, right? And Kol Midas Shebemikdash Hein Nigdashes. Is that where we're starting? On Daf Tzaddik? Oh, is that the Mishnah? Okay, we thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. For the language of the Maseches Menachos Daf. Also, Lili Nishmas. Baruch ben Yisrael HaKayin. Bob Kramer, Jeff's father-in-law. Okay. Amen. Okay, so the Mishnah starts like this. Kol midas shebemikdash hayu nigdashes. Chutz mishal kain gadol sheyagayt shalateicha. This is right away you're going to have a feeling of rejection to this. It's going to be, what? We learned differently. But the Mishnah says that all measurements in the Beis Hamikdash were heaping measurements, except for the measurement of the Kohen Gadol, which was Geit Shel Seicha. The heaping part was already inside. In other words, what made it complete to be in the Saran, that was when it was flush with the rim of it. All other measurements were heaping. But there was one measurement for the Kohen Gadol which was full when it was flush with the top. Let's see in the Gemara's going to ask, like, who's this going according to? Midas Alach. When it comes to liquid measures, Beiritzeim Kodesh. Beiritzeim means what overflows, or what hangs around the top on that surface tension. So that's Kodesh. And Midas Yavish, in the dry ones, Beiritzeim Chol. It's mundane. That means that simple pshat in this, what the Gemara is going to go through, but simply put, the kalim were anointed, right? So the liquid kalim were anointed on the inside and on the rim. The dry kalim were only anointed on the inside. So therefore, what flows over the rim by the liquid is going to be kodesh, and what flows over the rim by the dry, there's a difference between if it's wine and oil or if it's flour. What fills up by the flour, what goes over the rim is not kodesh.
Yeah, the bridge was done.
Okay, that's the first opinion. Rabbi Kiva Aimer, midas alach kodesh. Lefikach beruseim kodesh. The midas alach, the liquid measures, he's Rabbi Kiva saying more than this. He's saying that the liquid measuring cups were actually anointed. And so therefore, if it's anointed, so then that's what's going to be. Then it's going to be kodesh. And midas yavish is chol, lefikach beruseim chol. It wasn't even anointed at all. Okay, that's interesting. How do things become holy by according to Rabbi Akiva? If it's dry, if it's liquid, it becomes holy because you put it into the vessel. If it's dry, how does it become holy? That's because you pronounced it holy, only with what you pronounced, not because of the vessel. Rabbi Yossi says, "Lo mishum zeh el shalach nekar v'yavesh ein nekar." I think what Rabbi Yossi means is that when you pour liquid into a vessel, so the what you're pouring in always like goes to the bottom and then comes back up. When you're pouring dry, it just keeps piling up. What happens is the liquid that you poured in, even though it's overflowing, but that was already inside the vessel. What's overflowing? It's not that it's spilling off the top. By a dry, it's spilling off the top. So Rabbi Yossi says, you want to know why the surface tension of liquid is kodesh? and I don't know if it's surface tension, but the pile up of the dry is not kodesh. It's not holy because it was never inside. The liquid went inside. Over brim. Over brim. Okay.
I remember this.
Yeah.
So excited.
It's a very interesting discussion in the Rishonim about Tata Gavar. You know, in Tata Gavar, Tata is the lower, because heat rises. So if you have two pieces of meat, one's hot and one's cold, you put one on top of the other. So the lower one is going to heat up the upper one. On the other hand, if you put the hot one on top of the cold one, then yeah, it's going to be a little bit on the surface. It's going to make it hot, but the rest of it's not going to absorb. So if you have one, let's say one's kosher, one's not kosher. So you would be able to, theoretically, you would be able to slice off the layer of the bottom one because the top one didn't really get absorbed in the lower one because it was cold. The top one was hot, the lower one was cold. So then there's a discussion about that's a rule called Tata Gavar. The lower one always wins. If the lower one is hot, then the upper one is hot. If the lower one is cold, then it stays cold. It doesn't. The lower one wins Tata Gavar. So so there's a discussion by liquid if this applies. If you pour from something hot to something cold, do you say Tata Gavar? Because really what used to be on the bottom is not on the bottom anymore. Liquid that drops in goes straight to the bottom. And that becomes the new bottom, right? That's a discussion around discussion.
Water.
What is that?
Not if you pour water.
Not if you pour oil into it. Well, maybe. Actually, you pour oil into the water, it goes down and then it comes back up. But I think pouring oil in the water is the way that you could see that this actually works. Yeah. I pour oil into water by the Shabbos candles. My wife uses oil. You don't fill up the whole cup. It'll burn till Shalosh this time. Fill up the whole cup. So you fill the bottom with water, put the oil on top. Okay. The Gemara. In the beginning of the Mishnah, we learned Mani. In the beginning of the Mishnah, we learned that all vessels of the Beis Hamikdash, all measuring cups of the Beis Hamikdash, was heaping. In order to be full, it had to be heaping. Right? In order to be the right measure, it had to be heaping. Which says, Mani, which opinion is this? Reb Meir, if you want to say it's Reb Meir, now we're going back a page or two, 3. We had an opinion of Reb Meir that said that there were 2 Isarains. One of them was flush, was exactly equal, was an Isaran. The other one was only an Isaran when it was heaping. It's a little bit smaller, but you had to heap it up to be. So if it's Reb Meir, so you have to add some words in here. The Shita Mikdash adds in. He says, Trey Havi, there were 2. Kad Gadash Vatad Machak. I'm adding in words based on the Shita Mikdash. Then there was one was heaping and one wasn't. What are you telling me? Kol me this nid gashais nigdashais. All of them were heaping. It's not true. There was one that was and one that wasn't. Okay, how could it be Reb Meir? Rabbanan, if it's Rabbanan, Chada Machaku. It wasn't actually, it was exactly the opposite according to Rabbanan. It was only one measurement, and that was flush with when it was flush with the surface, with the rim, with the brim, that's what you want to call it. So then so it doesn't fit with our Mishnah. Rav Chisda says, La'ilam Reb Meir. Really, we're going to follow Reb Meir. Say that really there were 2. Michael Midas, what does it mean? That all measurements, it doesn't mean measuring utensils. Kol medidas, every time you measure, that means all measurings. What does it mean, all measurings? It means whenever you measured the flour for mincha, you always used the one that would have to heap in order to be full, because you wanted to show, like the way they serve popcorn in the theaters. It's always like always going over. Why don't they make a little bit of a bigger cup and that the people won't buy as much? They have to make it a little smaller, and they give more, and that's right. With the ice cream, it's got to be dripping somewhere. It's like part of the whole thing, right? This and the Beis Hamikdash also. It looks more chashuv when it's heaping. Okay. Bagel shop in Fun Heights used to give you like they put on the cream cheese, it's loaded on. People would love to go there. Then they got cheaper, and then they spread it with a knife. A little schmear. Okay, used to use a big spoon, and now they use a knife. Okay, Midei Salach Beritzim Kodesh. Midei Salach, where this is our discussion about the liquid measuring cups. The heaping part is Kodesh, but the over brim is also holy. Micah Mifki, we have like this very interesting machlekes here. We have a Tanakama. We have Rabbi Akiva. We have Rabbi Yossi. Almost all saying the same thing. Very, very close. Very similar. It says, the Gemara explains like this. Tanakama Savar, Mida Salach Nimshecha Bein Min Bifnim Bein Machos. Let's see that Dalad. Nimshechu. They were. Not Nimshecha. Not it was. They were. The liquid measurements, they were anointed inside and outside. Now, outside probably just means the rim. It means when they were anointed, they put the oil on the rim. Right? So therefore, when you fill it up all the way in the overbrim, that surface tension that's above the top is also Kodesh. Why? Because the brim is also Kodesh. Right? When you kasher a keli, make sure it flows over the rim, because when you cook, it goes over the rim. So that what's over the rim is part of the keli. It's anointed. The dry measures were only anointed on the inside. The over brim wasn't anointed. Okay, very easy. That's the Tanakam. Rabbi Kiva Savar Mida Salach Nimshcha Bein Bifnim Bein Machotz. Rabbi Kiva holds exactly like the Tanakam when it comes to liquid measure. Yeah, it's anointed inside and outside. It means at the brim. However, Rabbi Kiva says that the dry measure wasn't anointed at all. Yeah, so the question is, how does it become holy? Okay.
If everything in holiness has an equal, saying that the dry measure is holy only on the inside, not the rim. Why don't, and you precluded this before when you said we're talking about just the rim and not the entire outside. Why is it when we're talking about, I think it was earthenwares or stuff, that the tumor was only inside, but not outside by touching? That would go against this, because if you said, but not by touching the rim, if you say, if you include the outside with the rim, then that would go opposite the others. When you give me a smile like that, it's like totally disconnected.
You definitely lost the room.
Forget about it.
After class. No, we'll go over it after class.
He's not going nowhere.
No, we'll all go over it with you.
Geniuses think different than other
geniuses
other
and
people.
idiots. Yeah.
There's office hours. Office hours.
Yeah.
It's
like 1:40.
The water.
Did you at least see the question?
Yeah.
It's just like
Yeah.
kind of.
Office hours.
Dr. Stein is doing a comparison between the holiness of the liquid measures versus the impurity when something is in an earthenware vessel. If it's on the inside or the outside in this. But it's the genius comment. It's not the simple. Okay.
Yeah. Making me feel good physically.
Genius is a euphemism. For the rest of the
I know.
Okay, so that was Rabbi Akiva's opinion. Rabbi Yossi Savar, Rabbi Yossi holds idividi. Remember the expression "Mahal Be'iloi"? Remember that expression? They say that a genius had there's two parts to a genius. One that he was just like a great mind. Other one is that he was a little absent-minded.
It's like it's a
so they would say
hairline difference between madness and genius.
And so they would in Yiddish they would say he's a halbi, like he had the only half of it. Anyway, Rabbi Yossi Savar idividi nimshcha mifnim. Rabbi Yossi holds that he's that both of them were anointed on the inside. Nothing was anointed on the outside. No brim and all of that stuff. And the reason is simply scientific. The lach nekar migava demana kaasi. The liquid one is nekar. It sounds like it's uprooted. But what it means is that it's coming from the inside and it fills up on the top. First it goes down and it goes up. A yavish ain't a nekar. But the yavish doesn't go in and then come out. It's just filling up on the top, so it was never holy. Gemara says, "V'chinekar mayhave gavra l'may detzarach kamechaven." One is asking that why does it become holy just because it was inside the vessel? The person only wanted to consecrate the amount that he needed. He didn't want to consecrate so much, so he should only consecrate the amount that he wanted, and what's extra, it just wipes away. It doesn't. We're making all the extra, the overbrim, we're making that holy, but that's he never wanted that. Amar Avdimi Bar Shishna, new name, right? Mishmei Derav, Zoisimeres Klisharis Mekadshin Shlemidas. Obviously, this is telling us that the Klisharis consecrates even if it's beyond the person's intention. And the person never intended it, nevertheless it consecrates. Ravina says, no. It would only consecrate what the person has intended to consecrate. However, that's on a biblical level. Or the rabbis, people see that it went in and then it went out, and then you're not using what's coming out. People are gonna say, oh, it's not such a big deal to take from something holy and put it into another vessel and then use it for personal things and all of that. So they made a decree that anything that was inside the vessel is holy, even though it's not really holy. But they just didn't want you to start using it for other things. People are going to say, oh, it's, you can do this. When you're dealing with Hayanim in the Beis HaMikdash, when they're dealing with Kachim, constant, regularly, so they could become like very lax, or people there could be people that are there regularly will be like, yeah, I saw the Kainim do this. It's not a problem. It's like the doctors with the gloves and the washing their hands. If they had some system where they didn't have to wash their hands. It was just like,
In the bathrooms that you're mentioning, that blows.
But they get into this habit, and they're always everything.
The opposite. On the contrary, weren't there like who were careful with Tuman Torah 24/7?
Right.
All their food.
So the Kainim themselves are not really worried about it, but it's the people that are there that are watching. The Kainim they think are
no, but the Chaverim that were careful were not regular people.
Right, but that's unique. You
think?
Yeah. There's a concern that a person is going to see this and he's going to start taking kachim lightly. He's going to say, yeah, it was in there, but now I could use it. It's fine. Put it from one to another.
What are we discussing? We're discussing here the flour of chatas. What are we discussing?
We're talking about the flour of a mincha.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
or the wine and oil.
So where did the flour and wine and oil come from? The guy brought it with him, or?
Yeah. If he didn't, the Beis HaMikdash would supply. They had a supply. It's like the Schultz crackers.
Right. Yeah, that's how most people did it. They bought some stuff on site, and then they gave it. Then they brought it for a carbon. So the guy showed up with his bag of flour. The Kain grabbed the scoop.
Or the owner would pour it into the holy vessel. Or the Kain would pour it into the holy vessel.
Ingredients that belong to the Beis HaMikdash, because that stuff would have already been hekdesh.
No, not necessarily. They would probably not want it to be hekdesh. They would keep it mundane because they don't know how much it's going to get used. They don't want it to. Also, it gets hekdesh as it's. There's also two types of hekdesh. There's hekdesh that's value is hekdesh because it was bought with the fund, and then there's hekdesh that's kedushas haguf. It becomes part of a carbon. It's a different type of hekdesh.
Even the stuff that was donated to the Beis HaMikdash, so that they can sell it to the people who want to give it carbon.
It's kedushas damim.
It's hekdesh. It's
hekdesh, but
if you want to take it out of hekdesh, you got to pay a premium. Whatever.
Right. But that's just kedushas damim. That's just the value. See, kedushas haguf is different that you can't redeem unless it has a blemish and it's complicated to redeem kedushas haguf. Okay. Masiv Reb Zera. Reb Zera has a question. Sider Salechem as a Bezichem Lachar Shabbos, Victor Sabezichem B'Shabbos, Psula. Say hey. Shabbos, Psula. I don't see any change over there. What happened over here was the showbread, the lechem apanim, and the spoons of frankincense are supposed to be in the base of Mikdash on the table for 7 days, for a full week. Let's say they were only there for 6 days because it wasn't ready. By the time they put it on the table, it was already Motzei Shabbos. So then when you take it off, following Shabbos, it's only 6 days. It's not a full 7 days. So what do you do if you would take it off then? It's not considered eligible yet to be used. So what can you do? You only do this on Shabbos. You leave it an entire other week. An entire other week. It sits over there for one more week. It's not a problem. It's those breads, those healthy breads. They're as fresh on the day you bake it as like 2 weeks later. So, so anyway, but it was a miracle that it stayed hot and all of that. So whatever the case is, you have to wait an entire week. So take a look at this. Kate said, yeah, so what should you do? You leave it for the entire next week. Even if it's on the table for many days, it doesn't matter. It doesn't become puzzle like that. It's a special rule over there. Sometimes if you leave a carbon overnight, it becomes puzzle. Over here, it was never offered yet, so it doesn't become puzzle. Amai. People are going to say that you can leave things inside holy vessels and it doesn't become puzzle. And you know that if you would actually do this to a regular mincha, you put it in a vessel. You couldn't leave it overnight once it was in the vessel. You had to do the kmitza and offer it. You had to do it on that day. And people are going to think that if you can leave things for more time, which here you're leaving it for a whole extra week, it's okay. According to the Ravina that says that we make gzeirus, that people are going to say that you can do this and that with holy vessels, here's another problem. People are going to say you can leave it in a holy vessel. The Gemara answers, Panim achutz karamis. You're asking a question. Pnim achutz karamis. You're asking from inside to outside. Pnim lav koli al miyadi. Chutz koli al miyadi. There are kayanim, of course, that know what's going on inside the heichal. But people outside don't know visitors don't know what's going on in the heichal. They don't know that there's lechem apanim that's been there for a week already. They don't know that. But what's outside, that's a different story. That's everyone's there, the visitors, all the people are seeing. That's a much bigger concern. What people Bosvet Yenim Zagin. Right? It's a concern. What are people going to think?
It's a good source for Ayin Hara. I'm not Ayin Hara for Maras Ayin.
Yeah. The bakery in Muncie. Got the name. It was the popular bakery over there. But you would go there and you would ask, is it fresh? And she would say, it's fresh from the freezer. And then she would argue with you how there's no difference between the freezer. It's exactly like fresh and it's the same thing. Okay. Tanan Hassam. We learned over there in the Mishnah, there's this Mishnah in Shkalim. It says, Meiser Nesachim L'Ketzam Mizbeach. What's left over from the Nesachim is from, it goes to the Ketzam Mizbeach. Remember, Ketz means like a dessert for the Mizbeach. What this means is that there were times when the Mizbeach was empty. There wasn't a lot going on. Make it look more active, so they would have these extra things that they would just keep offering when it's. So what's a typical thing? Well, Meiser Nesachim, what was left over from the Nesachim, would go to Ketzam Mizbeach. Now, what does that mean exactly? They would take that Nesachim. I think they would buy with it karbanas. Yeah, they would buy with it lambs to bring us oilas. What is Meiser Nesachim? You have to see in a moment. My Meiser Nesachim. What is Meiser Nesachim? Nesachim. Well, I'm going to need that chumash. We're going to discuss, not right now, but we're going to discuss the Nesachim. And the Nesachim are the libations, right? Come along, thank you. So, Reb Chia Bar Yosef Amar Berutzi Midas. Reb Chia Bar Yosef says, no, Meitzah Nesachim is what overflows from the measurements that over brim. There's always a little bit extra. So that is you collect it, and then that's gonna end up going to buy these karbanos. Rabbi Yochanan Merkaisis Shoshaninu. Rabbi Yochanan says it's really talking about a special case. It says Hamakabel of Lasapik Slasis Meyarba Vamdu B'Shalish Yaspik Meyarba. This is business laws. It sounds like Bab Metzia stuff. If someone accepted on himself that he would supply the Beis Hamikdash with grain for that year. And in other words, they made a deal with him. They came to a farmer. They said, this is the price we're going to give, and this is the amount you'll give for that. They made up the price. Now, the price that they made up was that he was going to give 4 sa per sela. 4 sa per sela. Then what happened was the price of grain actually went up. And really, the price of grain was really only 3 sa per sela. 4 barrels per dollar. Now it's 3 barrels. It really went up, and now it's 3 barrels per dollar. The price of the grain went up.
So that's less.
Less money would be for half a sela. This is 3. It used to be. He was going to supply the Beis Hamikdash with 4 per dollar per sela. Then it turns out that the price is going to give less. That's 3. Bamdu b'shalish. It became 3. That's as the flour started coming in, the grain started coming in. The price wasn't what they expected. This is the new price. Because of the war going on in whatever those days it would be Egypt. So Yaspik Mi'arba, it's his loss, the farmer's loss. He has to give what he made up. He has to give it. The house always wins, right? So they're going to give the lesser price. That's what they made up. Let's say it worked the other way. He made up that it was going to give 3, and the price went down. And now really the price is 4. And this guy's making money off the of hektish. Says Maspik Mi'arba, no. He goes, he pays the 4. She had hektish aliyah, the house always wins. That's what. Okay, so this extra bit that he's giving extra.
That's more than the 6th. So is that fair in that transaction?
Yeah, because it's the new price. So it's apparently the extra that he's giving, the extra that he's giving is going to be considered the maisar, the maisar nesachim, what's left over. That extra bit is going to go to buy things, and the profit that they're making is going to go towards Ketzim Mizbeach. Tanika v'seider Reb Chia Bar Yosef, Tanika v'seider Reb Yochanan. We actually have a brisa that supports Reb Chia Bar Yosef. We have a brisa that supports Reb Yochanan. Reb Chia Bar Yosef was the one that says the overflow. Reb Yochanan says it's the exchange rate, the price. Tanika v'seider Reb Chia Bar Yosef. There's a brisa that supports Reb Chia Bar Yosef. What would they do with the extra, the overflow? If there was another sacrifice there, so they could bring it with other sacrifice. But if it stayed overnight, then it would become possible, because if it was in a holy vessel, it would become possible. And if not, what could they do with it? They would give dessert to the mizbeach. What was the dessert to the mizbeach? They would bring oilas. So, if there was another carbon there, they would bring it with the other carbon. If not, then it would be in trouble. What would they do? They would somehow quickly redeem it and sell it, and they would be able to use it for another sacrifice. And that would be an oila, a burnt offering, an elevation offering. The elevation offering, the meat or the entire animal gets put for burnt on the mizbeach. Nothing gets eaten. And the skin goes to the kayanim. So the kayanim would make from the skin. They could make belts and wallets, boots. Tanya Kavasei Rabbi Yochanan. There's a brayso that supports Rabbi Yochanan. Makabel of Lasapik Slasis Me'arba Vamdu Mishalesh. He made up that he was going to supply 4 sa. And it turns out that the price changed, the price went up, and it's only 3 sa. Maspik miarba, he has to give the extra one. Mishali shvamda miarba, let's see, made up he was going to give 3 sa. It turned out that really the price is 4 sa. Maspik miarba, he has to give the extra because the house always wins. So Shoshanino, and this is what we learned, that the extra goes to the dessert of the Mizbeach. Basically, what we learned here is a support for each of those opinions of what's the Meiser Nesachim, what it does. One says this, one says that. We have a brisa that supports each one of those. Okay. The next discussion, the next Mishnah, is going to take us a day or two to get through this, 2 or 3 days to get through this. But it's based on, in all of Sefer Vayikra, you don't really have this. But when it comes to Bamidbar, when were they told that they're going to be in the desert? Shlach. Middle of Shlach, after the spies come back, and everyone's crying, and they're going to be there for 40 years in the desert, and then the people say, no, we're going anyway, and then they get killed out, right? So then the next section says, Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you arrived in the land of your residence, which I am giving you, and you make a voluntary fire offering to God to make a pleasant aroma for God, burnt offering or a peace offering, slaughter, be it a vow or voluntary offering, or an offering of your festivals, be it cattle or from sheep. If a person brings his offering of a lamb to God, he should present the meal offering 1/10 of an eighth of fine flour mixed with 1/4 of a hin of oil. Yeah, we get this law about bringing korbanos when we get into the land. Commentary over here says, what's the explanation for this? Why is this passage recorded after the count of the spies? Because when the Jewish people heard God's decree that they must remain in the desert for 40 years, they said, woe to us, we will never enter the land. But at the end of the 40 years, if we sin again, God will issue another decree. So there's no end to the matter. Hashem replied, after 40 years, you'll most definitely arrive in the land, and you have to bring these, he starts giving them the details of the halachas of when they get into Eretz Yisrael. Because it's really happening. That's the idea. Well, Kol Karbanos at Tzibur Vayachid, the Mishnah says now, all community sacrifices and individual sacrifices, tune in nesachim, require the wine, the flour, and the oil. Chutz, except for, so we said we really have an exception, right? Chutz min ha-bechar, the firstborn animal. It sounds like grammar. I before E, except that to see, that's there's more exceptions than that. So, Chutz min ha-bechar, the firstborn, Meiser is the tithing, Pesach is the Korban Pesach, Chatas, the sin offering, Vashem is the guilt offering. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 exceptions. Ella, Shechatas Yishal Mitzayir, Vashem Itun Nesachim. However, the Chatas and Vashem of Mitzayir do require Nesachim. So there's an exception to the exception. Okay. Tanarabanan, start in a brisa. What we're going to do now is we're going to say, where do we get these rules from? Because if you look at the pasuk says, "Va'asisem isha la'Hashem oila zebach," a burnt offering or a slaughtering to fulfill a vow or a donation or your holidays. Sweet smell to Hashem from cattle or from sheep. A lot of details there, and in these details that the pasuk says, you're going to get all the different karbanos. It's either in or out. So it starts off like this. Tanraban, the brisa says, "V'asisem isha la'Hashem." You will make a fire offering for Hashem. Yachal kalayil lishim yitar nesachim afilu mincha. Anything that goes on the fire is going to require nesachim. Even if you're bringing a flour offering, you're going to have to bring a flour offering together with the flour offering because it's right. The nesachim is going to have to be brought even with the mincha. Talmud Laimar oila. It says no, a burnt offering. Now oila means it's an animal sacrifice, but not a mincha. So we just excluded mincha. Shlamim minayin. How do we know? Let's say a peace offering. Talmud Laimar zebach. That's a slaughtering. The zebach is a shlamim. Taida minayin. How do I know that even a korban taida comes along? that that's carbon taida also needs a meal offering. A carbon taida, the Gemara is going to say, why do I? The carbon taida is a regular shlamim. It just has other breads with it. It's tamalaymer oy zevach. It says or. Why do we need the extra limud here? I could have figured it out on my own, because I was going to say that the taida has its own breads that come along with it anyway. That you're going to bring another bread offering, another meal offering together with the breads, and I think maybe the breads satisfy the whole thing because you have breads, you have 40 loaves of bread. It says no, I need a special limud. That's what the Gemara is going to explain. This brisa here is going to be like the. It's as if the Mishnah, the Gemara explains the Mishnah, but the Gemara is really going to work on this brisa, elaborate on this brisa. Okay, you have an oila, you have a shlamim, you have a taida, maybe also a firstborn animal, a tie, the pesach, a chatas, an asham, tamalaymar, lefali neder ibn adava, a donation or a vow. Baba neder and davatan esachim. If it comes with a vow or a donation, then it requires the nesachim. Sheina baba neder midava and etan nesachim. You don't have to bring the libations along. Mashma lahitzias elu. Because we just excluded these, it's implied that I should probably also exclude any obligation that comes because of a holiday. On the holidays. My neo, what are you referring to? What else are you expecting to exclude? A person goes to the Beis Hamikdash, he can't go empty-handed. He has to go, right? So he has to bring along a Yeru Panai Rekam. Come empty. You have to bring sacrifices. It's called the Oilas Ri. You have to bring a burnt offering. And the Shalmi Chagiga, and the holiday, you have to bring a peace offering. So you have these other obligations. So maybe they do not require nesachim when you bring them, because it seems only the donations and vows. Maybe these have an obligation attached to it. It says it says no, or on the holiday, or on the festivals. But neder and the davod mayadechem, it says in the pasuk. That means that these also require nesachim. Okay. Mashma lahavi yaselu avisiri chatas veilabayin chayva b'regel. Oh, you're bringing in anything that's on the holiday requires. Then it's probably also going to include also the sin offering, the goat sin offering that's brought always by a carbon musaf, right? Every musaf is sir echad lachatas, right? Sir chatas echad. There's always a carbon musaf, a goat that's brought on every holiday. Maybe that should also require the sachem, the flour, the water, the wine, and the oil. Tamalaymar, the chisase ben bakar. That's the. Where's the chisase? Let's see the chisase. Oh, the hikraval ben bakar. Oh no, it says after this says the chisase ben bakar oila is evach lefal neder shlam lashem. Yeah. It starts off. If it's a ram, no. If it's a sheep, then it's this. If it's a ram, then it's that. And if it's ben bakar, then it's going to be this. So it says v'chisase ben bakar b'chlal haya. Already mentioned before min bakar and min atzayin. Why is it repeating it? L'lama yatza lahakashay love. It's coming to do a comparison. Ma ben bakar miyuchad ba beneder benedava afkal ba beneder benedava. Only things, just like the Ben Bakar, it was in the pasuk that says if it comes as a donation or a vow, so too, only things that come as a donation or a vow, which excludes the sin offering on the goat sin offering. Now the pasuk says, "Lasis reich nichayich laShem min habakari min atzayin." We're concluding the first pasuk to make us a sweet smell to Hashem. Translate that. Yeah, it's funny they skipped through the last Riach Michaya. Okay. From the cattle or from the flock. What's that coming to teach me? Because we said before an oila, a burnt offering. I could have thought that it's referring to also a bird offering, that if you bring a bird, you have to bring the flour, oil, and wine together with it. B'mashma, that would imply Tamalaymar min abakar, min atzayin. It says from cattle or from sheep. Div Rabbi Yeshua. That's what Rabbi Yeshua does with these words. It tells me that it's excluding birds. Rabbi Yonasan says, "Ein tzarech." It's not necessary to do that. It already said a sacrifice, and a bird is not called a sacrifice. A bird is not a zevach. You do malik on it, but zevach means shchita. You don't do shchita on it. Imkein mata maleimer min abaka min atzayin. So why does it say from cattle from sheep? Because I have in the beginning of Sefer Vayikra, we're jumping back an entire book of the Torah. It says at the beginning of Vayikra, it says, if a person will bring a sacrifice from the animal, from the cattle, from the flock, maybe if someone says, I want to bring an oila, he has to bring two. He has to bring cattle and flock, which means a bull and a sheep, right? So it comes along our pasuk that adds the word "oy," which is coming to say that you only have to bring one. You don't have to bring both. Maybe. Maybe. If you want, you could bring one. If you want, you could bring two. Now the Gemara here gets into a major complication because there's a machlekes, very famous machlekes, between Rabbi Yonasan and Rabbi Yeshua, and regarding something totally different, but it's related. The Gemara in Sanhedrin and in Bamitzia and a bunch of places, it says that there's a machlekes Rabbi Yonasan and Rabbi Yeshua. The person curses his father and his mother, so it says he's put to death, right? If he curses his father and his mother. Now it doesn't say curses his father or his mother. It says it curses his father and his mother. There's one opinion that says that whenever it says and, it always means or.
God can always say.
Oh yeah, that's based on this opinion. Now, then there's other opinion that says, well, if you look further in the pasuk, it says his mother he cursed, his father he cursed. That's what's dividing it up. Really, I would have understood that it's both, because it's elaborates and it then spells it out, one or the other. Now, so there's two opinions. One opinion holds that if it wants to say both, it has to actually put yachdav. It has to say yachdav, both. If it doesn't say yachdav, then it's automatic. Every and means or. Other opinion says it doesn't need to say yachdav. What happened over here was that we had a pasuk that says min habakar min atzayin, oy min atzayin, or from, and we're saying that the fact that it says or, that's coming to teach me that you don't need to. That the fact that it says or means that you don't need to bring both. You don't need to bring both. If it didn't say this or, I would have thought that they had to bring both. Now, one second. The opinion of Rabbi Yonasan that's quoting this, he's the opinion that holds that every and is really or. And he's the one that's saying that I need the pasuk or to tell me or. It's a contradiction to what Rabbi Yonasan holds in the rest of Shas. Yeah.
Both.
Can, but he doesn't have to.
Usually when you say or is one or the other, then they take from that they could also bring both. It seems like it's extra.
Yeah, a person says, I want to bring an Ayla. What does that mean? Based on the psukim, I could have thought it meant both. I could have thought it meant one. So Rabbi Yonasan is saying that because I have another verse somewhere else where it says that you can bring this or that, so it means it could be one. You don't have to bring both. You can bring two, of course. You can bring 10. But if it says I'm bringing an Ayla, so it's that would mean just one. You want to bring another one, bring another. But it's the Ayla would just mean one. Now the problem is that Rabbi Yonasan doesn't hold that anywhere else. Rabbi Yonasan, the Gemara says, Lama likra. Rabbi Yonasan, why would he need the pasuk to do this? Ha'amar, Rabbi Yonasan holds at sheyifalacha kasav yachtav, that until the pasuk tells me together, it always means separate. And now you're telling me that I need the or to tell me that. The Gemara says it's still necessary. Because the pasuk before says Adam Kachim Kem Bakar Umin Hatzain, it says and from sheep. and from cattle, and from flock, command ksiv yachtav dami. It looks like it's saying yachtav because it says and from, right? Because it has the word and from, it makes it look like you're doing both. So it's as if it said together. Now we go the other way. Rabbi Yoshia said that what do I learn from Oiminatzain? Minabakiminatzain says it's coming to exclude birds. Rabbi Yonason would be exactly the one that would need the or to tell me or, because he says that every and means and together. Not yet. No, it's not a general specific. Just when you have two details are both necessary. Right? Honor your father and your mother. If you only honored your father, not your mother, did you do the mitzvah? I'm sorry? No, of course you did. You honored your father. That's how, right? Someone curses his father and his mother. Is it only both, or is it either or? So it's a machlekes what that would mean. Now, based on other, we know that it means either or, but how do we get to that? So Rabbi Yoshia says that even if it doesn't say together, it always means and, which means both. So libaikra, we should have a pasuk to divide it up, that you don't need to bring both. If someone says I'm bringing an oila, it doesn't have to bring two animals. Aksiv im oila karbanai min abakar, im min atzain karbani, because the Torah itself divides it up. It gives two different parshas. V'idach, what about Rabbi Yonason? Why does he need the pasuk? We also have him in atzain. So he says yitzchach. The pasuk, the psukim in Sefer Vayikra, where it says "Imin atzain karbani," if he's bringing from flock, if he's bringing from this, which tell me that you only have to bring one. That's because he specified that he's bringing one. Rabbi Yonason needs the extra pasuk to tell me that you have to bring that you only have to bring one, even if he doesn't specify that he's bringing one. If he says I'm bringing an ayla, he didn't say that it's only one. Of course, he could bring one if he specified. But let's say he didn't specify, and it was just very general. Would he be allowed to bring one? So for that, Rabbi Yonason has this extra pasuk that tells me that you can also bring one. Okay, let's leave it by the Amar Ma'at.
Oh, it's just getting good. This is a good part.
Thank you.
Let's do this. Now I have to wait a whole day.
Okay, have a good day, everyone. Tomorrow, let's leave it at 7:30 until I.
Have a good day. Stay out.
Okay.
And remember to take the fresh fruit out of the freezer.
So you're
Okay.
Hopefully.
director.